Okay, so we are going to review the environment that we have for you and some of the data sets that we have. Okay, so in the environment that we have, so if you go to this address, the soshub.ischool.syr.edu, you will be asked to log in. Hopefully you already try it. You will be asked to log in with your GitHub account. If you try to log in at the GitHub account doesn't work, you get an error 403, you have to send me a message and I can add you, but I haven't. So I just need to authorize you to access the system. So when you enter, you will see something like this. Okay, so this is a Jupyter Hub environment. When you log in with your GitHub account, the system will automatically create a container for you, and this container will have all the code that you need to run all the exercises in this summer school. So you will have like a small computer, if you wish, if you will, with about 8 gigs of RAM and about 8 processors. And this is a big cluster and it's running on Kubernetes, but you don't need to worry about that. You are isolated from everybody else, and anything that you do here gets saved. So you can log out and leave, and it will be available when you come back. Except that if you want to record something and stay in your account, you have to put it in a specific place, because if you put it here directly in the home directory, it will get deleted if you log out. So there are 2 folders in this environment. One folder is the dataset folder, and the other one is the library folder. The library folder. The library folder contains your code. So whatever you put inside here, it will get saved permanently for your account. Now there is a special folder here called S4 Lectures, and this folder, again, will get synchronized with the repository that we have for the class, this repository called S4 Lectures. So every time you log in, it will be synchronized automatically. We'll basically do a git pull into this folder. So, but if you want to create, again, a file or a Jupyter notebook here, you can do it and it will be saved when you come back. In the other folder that we have in the home directory, we have a data sets folder, and here we put well, these are like just debugging folders, so don't pay attention. Just go to S4, and here you will have subfolders with data sets that we're making available for you. Some of these data sets are very big, and probably unless you know some specific way of accessing the data, you won't be able to load it with the traditional Python packages like pandas and things like that. There are other ways of loading data sets that are big, and I will be giving pointers to those software packages. One of them is called Spark. So it's in Python, it's called PySpark, and you can access data sets that are bigger than the RAM. And another one is called Dask. Now, Dask is installed here, and you can use it to load data, but we won't be teaching it here in the class. I'm going to give pointers to it later. I'm probably posted on the GitHub, sorry, on the so one is Dask, I guess. Let me add, is this showing transcript? Okay, it's supposed to be showing what I'm saying, hopefully. Okay, so
we have the transcript, it's just in a window.
Okay, great. I don't see it, but that's Zoom. It's very confusing. Thank you. So now the main data set that probably most of you will be interested in is called MAG, and this is the Microsoft Academic Graph data set. Some of the files, again, are relatively big. So you have the paper affiliation information, that's 51 gigabytes, but we only have 8 gigabytes of RAM. And again, I will be sharing information about how to access these data sets of this size. So the Microsoft Academic Graph sadly is retiring, but you can still take a look at the entity. I know that that's not the name, at the entity diagram. So they make available the entity relationship diagram. So if you're familiar with databases, this basically saying these are different tables or different files that have these are like huge Excel spreadsheets, and these have different columns, and these are how the columns are related with other tables that you have in this data set. So if you click here, you will see the details, and they have a pretty nice set of data sets, entities here. Now, one of the nice things about this data set is that you have identifiers, and they have tried to, I mean, they used to be worse and now they're better, but still, there is still work to do. But they try to disambiguate authors. So for example, sometimes I used to put my name as Daniel Acuna, and the system will just split me into two IDs because it thought that Acuna was a different person from without the ñ. So, but now they have improved the disambiguation system quite a lot, so it works better. Now, in the folder we have the data, but we also have samples. So TXT are the real data sets. So as you can see in the difference inside, that will become clear. So these are the real data sets from MAG, and to access that you have to pay a little bit. So we're making it available here. But because it's hard to load this data, we created a sample. Okay, so the way that we did this sample is we randomly sample, and correct me, Lijem, if I'm wrong, but we randomly sampled 5,000 authors. So we sampled 5,000 people from here, from the authors table, and then we created, basically, we took all the papers that are published, all the citations, and all the papers that are citing those papers. So we have like a one-step out part of the network, and that's just because we will use it for showing the capabilities of what we will teach. So it has papers, it has authors, and it also has institutions. So and they are disambiguated. So you can keep track of institution productivity and impact. They also have keywords, and they are fairly good. So they use a sophisticated way of inferring they call it fields, paper fields. So they have a sophisticated way of assigning field names to the papers. So even though the paper might not have information in the abstract about the field, the system will kind of infer what the field is of a paper. And that can be useful if you want to understand, for example, for plot, what are the fields represented in a set of papers. The other data set that we have is called ACL ARC, and we use it for a project for a problem called site worthiness. So basically, if you want to build a system that will predict which sentence should have a citation and which citation should be in that sentence, this is the data set that you should use. And we also make it available because we will have an example in one of the classes, in one of the sessions for this. And you can see more information here in this link. The other data set that we have is a sample of PubMed Open Access subset. So if you are interested in things beyond citations, but more in content, about content, this is the place to go. They make available around 7 million open access publications, and we have a sample of this. And and you can, well, I'm not going to access it now, but basically each paper that is open access will have an associated zip file, and that zip file will have the full text in XML format and the images associated with that paper, the figures. So I use it in my research when I'm trying to detect fabrication in scientific figures. But you can also use it for other kinds of things if you want to understand the captions that are in figures and things like that. This is the data set to go. So this is around 4 terabytes of data. I downloaded it, and once you uncompress it, I think it doubles. So it's fairly, it's not that big. And the last data set that we have is called Mentorship, and this is a relatively new data set that we created. Well, Shin created, a postdoc in my lab who is moving to Hong Kong for a tenure track position. And basically, this is the collaboration between me, Stephen, and my students for trying to create a data set of mentorship. So a lot of the things that you see in publications are relationship related to authorship. A lot of them are mentorship relationships, but not all of them. So we use the website that Stephen created. It was called Neurotree in the past, but now it's called Academic Family Tree, and it has the genealogy basically of hundreds of thousands of scientists. And with this data set, and this paper explains what are the entities inside that data set, and we link each of the profiles in his data set with MAG IDs, so you can track citations, publications, etc. Stephen will explain this in more detail or give examples about this data set on Wednesday on the network science session, in the network science session. Okay, so what I will do now, I will go into the lectures and I will just show you what this is basically. What is this thing that I'm showing you? And this is, again, this Jupyter notebook, and it's basically showing you're browsing the files, but then sometimes you have these special files with this extension called IPYNB, which means IPython notebook. And what these files are combinations of both text, rich text. So you have, headers and bold fonts and links. And also you can have code. So I assume you are familiar with something like this, maybe not in Python, but maybe in R. When you have in RStudio, you have something similar to this. In Mathematica, I think that's where the idea comes from. Now, in this summer school, I cannot possibly hope to teach Python and all of it. Now, Python is a relatively simple language, but it still can be complicated if you're just getting started, especially because it's very lenient and you can do many things that other languages wouldn't allow you to do. So sometimes you don't know why things are happening. So I'm leaving here a couple of links to tutorials that you can use. I'm aware that someone is mentioning an error that you can get. I'm aware there is an error and we're trying to fix it. So at the start, when you log in, the system might crash and it might show you like a big list of errors, and we're trying to fix it. It seems that you need to wait a little bit and it will go away automatically, but we'll try to get to it soon. So these are some courses that are available for learning more about Python, learning more about things that we think are important, like GitHub, keeping track of code, and basic stuff about this. Now, of course, you can install Python in your local computer. The most common distribution of Python, I would say, is Anaconda Python. If you go to this link, you can download it and install it in your system. You can program it in multiple ways. You can program it through an IDE like Visual Studio Code or PyCharm, or you can program it through this environment here. So, or through IPython. So IPython is an environment that works in terminal. So if you're accessing, let's say, a server and you don't have access to a web browser, then that's the way to go. But the way that we'll do it in the summer school is through the Jupyter Notebook. So the way that the Jupyter Notebook works is that you have an interface that's just the front end that is connected to a kernel that's basically connected to a Python program in a server here in Syracuse. So whatever you do in this notebook, if you execute code, when reality will happen is that it will take this, well, the system will take that code, transmit it over the web, and will get executed here. So there's nothing really saved here. So if you close this and reopen it, you will lose everything because it will close the Jupyter, the Python kernel that belongs to this notebook. So in the Jupyter Notebook, there are some concepts. So there is a concept of cells. There's a concept of different types of cells. Right. So to access the cell, we are gonna, you can see now actually that if I click something, it will show a border around this, and this means that this is a cell. Okay. Now, when the cell is colored blue, it means that we are in command mode. So if I click, I'm now using my arrows. If I can move around the notebook from cell to cell, but there is another mode called the edit mode, and that you enter that mode by either pressing enter or double clicking on a cell. So here I press enter and I enter the edit mode, and now I can edit the content of that cell. So here you can see that this cell has some formatting. So this is called Markdown, and I assume this is something relatively familiar, but it's a way of creating formatted text using simple plain text. So here I'm saying with this pound sign, I'm saying make this a heading. With this ones, I'm saying make this a listed numbered list. Now, to ask the system to interpret this cell, you have to execute it, and you can execute it by doing run. Or I'm going to enter again, I'm going to double click, or you can execute it by pressing Control Enter or Shift Enter. If you press Shift Enter, you will move into the next cell. Now, once you are in the command mode, you can delete cells and insert cells with various key shortcuts. This is the edit, but you can see the shortcuts here. I use it all the time, so I kind of memorize these shortcuts. So you don't need to be going into the menu to insert cells. So if I want to insert a cell below, the shortcut is B instead of just going to the menu. Now the cells have type. Okay, so this cell right here is a type Markdown, but the cell below that I insert is the type code. So here's where I can start inserting codes. So let's move on to simple Python here. Okay, so I'm gonna just go over something very simple, simply variables, loops, and if statements, because that's the activity that we'll have later. Of course, you have the basic data types in Python, and here you have cells that represent code. So this cell means that nothing has been executed yet. It says this is an input cell, but it hasn't been executed, so it doesn't have a number. But if I enter it and then I press run, it will execute it. It will send it to the kernel and it will return. So this is saying, I want to know the type of this object that I put inside my function, and it just returns int because the type of this object is an integer. And I can do this with the next one. So we have floating point numbers. And now I'm going to start executing by pressing Shift and Enter. So if I press Shift Enter, it will execute and it will move automatically into the next cell. So I'm going to execute this. And you have different types. So you have strings, you have booleans, you have lists, dictionaries. So these are sometimes called hash maps. So you have a key and a value pair. You can access the values through the key. You have tuple, and you have, well, you have, when you create tuples, sometimes you have to be careful because you just put one parenthesis, it won't recognize that it's a tuple. It will just recognize that it's a floating point number. Now, I recognize that I'm going through these maybe too fast, but hope we will make this available as videos, and hopefully you can review it later if it is too fast for you. Now, I will ask you to go through this yourself. But one of the coolest thing about Python is that you have these very powerful constructs for creating data structures or enumerating elements and applying transformations to elements. So to create a list, for example, you just execute this command. It will create 2 lists. Now, lists don't care about the type that you put. So in some programming languages, all the elements that are inside the list have to be of the same type. Here, it doesn't care. I can ask for the length of the list. Now, there are a concept that is very important in programming language, and this is the concept of accessing a variable through a value reference or through a pointer to the variable. So what this means is basically, if I say I'm gonna here apply an operation, I will say I have my X list, and if I append or add another list, it will just add it to it, but it won't modify X. Okay, but there are some operations that actually modify X. So if I do this operation, it won't return anything, but internally the X structure has been modified. And again, lists don't care the data types that they have inside. You can have all kinds of operations. You can ask if there is a value inside a list. And another very common operation is to select parts of the list. So here I'm going to create a list from 1 to 4, and you can access different elements. Now in Python, the indices start from 0. So similar to C, but in R, indices start from 1. So this operation will access the first element of the list. This operation would access the 4th element of the list. You can select different parts of the list by doing this operation called slicing. So I can say, give me from the 0th index up to before 3 index. So it won't return the 4th index. So it's a little different from here. Here it returns the 4th index because I'm asking explicitly, but when I ask through a slice, it doesn't take the last index into account. Okay, so here you have other examples that I'm going to skip for now. Now, one of the operations that are really compact and powerful for representing transformation is called comprehensions. So in comprehensions, you can generate data by iterating over a sequence and applying operations to each element of the sequence. And it's very intuitive to read. Here you're saying basically just make I go through a list of elements. So this is just a list from 0 to 9. And for each of the elements, don't do anything, just return the same thing. So this will just create the same list again. But I can apply more sophisticated operations like a square each of the elements. I can also apply conditions to the production of elements of this comprehension. So here I will only produce things if I is greater than 5. So it will return only a portion of the list. Now, strings are the same as lists, basically. They are just concatenation of characters. So you have the same operations. You can select characters, you can select slices of the string. When you have negative values in the index, that means that you want to start from the back of the string, from the end of the string backwards. So this means give me the the 10th character from the back of the string all the way up to the end of the list. And there is this other way of selecting a slice where you say, I want to skip, give me from 0 until the end, but I want to skip every character, every 2 characters. So it will just give me the odd characters of the list. And of course, you have many operations in these objects. So I'm going to show you now how to access the help of the object. So here, S is a string. So if I do type S, it will be a string. Now, objects, you can access the operations that you can do on them by using the dot button, character. And to access the operations that are available, you press Tab. Great. So it seems that the system is working now for some of you. So here, I wish I could show you my keyword, but basically I'm pressing S and then dot, and then I'm pressing Tab. Okay, the Tab key, and that will list, suggest things that object can do. So I could capitalize that string. So this will take the string and transform all the letters. Well, it will just transform the first letter of the string into capital, but it didn't do anything because it was already like that. But I can do something like upper. It will transform everything into uppercase. And there are many, many other operations. Okay, so lists are things that you can modify. So before I created this list, if you remember, from 1 to 4, and I can say replace the 3rd character with -1. And if I print it again, it will show me that it replaced it. But a tuple won't allow me to do that. It's immutable. So if I try to replace it, it will complain. And the idea is that tuples are generally more efficient for storing things that you don't need to modify. So dictionaries, again, this is a similar idea to hash maps, or I like to think of this as like a row in a database or a row in an Excel spreadsheet. So this is saying one row of a spreadsheet has 2 columns, name and GPA, and these are the entries in the column. And here I'm creating another column. Basically, I'm creating another entry in the dictionary. Now, if I ask for the keys, it will return the values. But here I didn't define age, so if I execute this, it will complain. But to avoid that complaint, I can use the operation get, and I say get this key, but if it doesn't exist, just return empty string. There's a question about if I capitalize. Yeah, so good point. So you can do capitalize to see with a I think at the beginning with a question mark, it will show you the help, what it does. Some operations, let's say find. Let's say you want to find a string. I mean a substring every. I believe it existed. Yeah, so it's in the first index. So I'm going to print again. So one cool trick that I sometimes use is that let's say if you want to understand what are the parameters that you need here, I put my cursor inside the parentheses and I press Shift Tab. That suggests things that I can do with the string. Okay, program flow. You have the usual suspects. You have the Boolean operation or Boolean queries, and it will return a Boolean depending on whether they're true or not. Now, one thing that might be different from if you're coming from a different language is that there is no sense of creating a block with a special character. So what I mean by that, if I say something like, let's say this is the list. So I know that 2 is in the list, right? Okay, so if I do something like if 2 in X, if I do column, this, and I press enter, it will automatically create a block. So a block here of code is simply denoted by spaces. Okay, so this is different from other programming languages. So here I'm creating a block of what would happen if X contains 2. Okay, so here these two things will happen if 2 is in X, and as you can see, it will happen. So if I do an else, and I kind of messed up the spacing, it will complain. It says that there is something wrong. Well, okay, so I complained that it's a syntax error. So I just need to make sure to put the right space. So now this block of code will be executed when this is true, and this block will be executed when this is false. So now only the first string will be printed. So for loops, it's actually very, very nice, very, very simple. So let's see, I'm going to define a list here called A from 1 to 4. And as you can see, it's almost very, I mean, it's just telling you what it's doing. It's using a variable that will go through each of the elements of the list. And whatever you put inside here, this variable element will take on the values of A. So here, what I will do, I will go through the elements of A, and I will just print the values. So it's very intuitive. Now functions are also very intuitive. Here I'm going to define a function. I use the keyword def. This function has no parameter, and to put comments on a function, use just these 3 special characters. You can put comments in other ways like this, but usually with functions, there is this convention that you want to put multiple line comments. So you can say this function is constant and returns 5. So you can put multiple comments to multiple lines. So I will define it, and then if I execute it, it will tell me, it will return the result. Now functions are first class citizens in Python. So if I use the type of F, it will tell me that it's a function. So I can do operations with functions. I can understand what they have inside, what are the comments, and things like that. Now functions don't care about the type. Although the new versions of Python, you can annotate, you can say, I want this to be an integer, but these are just suggestions, so it doesn't really care. So you can say add 2 numbers. So here it receives 2 parameters A and B, and it will return just the addition of the 2 numbers. Okay, but if I add 2 strings, it won't care. It will just apply the operation to whatever you're passing. But of course, if I pass 2 and a string, it will complain because they cannot be matched. Okay, so you won't, when you write the code, it won't complain until you execute it. So that's one of the problems with interpreted languages, that you cannot know at the time of programming that you will have an error unless you execute the code. All right. Now there is a ton of packages in Python, and we'll go through some of them tomorrow. But to import a package, you use this way of doing it. You say import the name of the package, and you can rename that import. So if I import NumPy this, then I can use all the functionality that is inside NumPy. So if I do again dot, it will list everything that is inside. I can create a matrix of zeros, say typo there, but I mean, we'll see NumPy tomorrow, but you can rename it, and instead of typing NumPy all the time, every time you can say MP. So to install packages, good point. Now, this environment that you have here, you are allowed to install packages. Okay, and to install packages, there is a package manager. There are many package managers in Python. One of the simplest one is called pip, Python something, I forgot. So if you do pip and you install something like the dup, which is a deduplication library, you can do something like this. So you're trying to deduplicate names or affiliations. This is a perfect package. So if you do that, it will install the package. Now the problem, however, is that this is similar to what happens with Google Colab. So every time you create, the folder, now this didn't load because there is a problem with the package. Okay, so it's not because because the system is, I mean, it's incompatible, so the package hasn't updated. But you can install packages with pip, but every time you restart the notebook, or every time you come back, let's say in half an hour, probably your environment, the things that are outside these two folders will get deleted, and that's where the packages are installed. So just be careful with that. Okay. So we're gonna do this amazing innovation on how we're gonna do activities. Okay, so hear me out. We have this little activity, and if you know, if you've studied data science or machine learning, maybe you know this problem. This is called the FizzBuzz problem. FizzBuzz. And the idea is very simple. We want you to write a program. Okay, so pay attention. Write a program that prints the numbers from 1 to 100. But for multiples of 3, you want to print fizz instead of the number. And for multiples of 5, you want to print buzz. For numbers that are multiples of both 3 and 5, you want to print fizz buzz. Now, before start that, to test if something is a multiple of something else, let's say if 10 is a multiple of 2, you do the following kind of strange operation. You say, I want to take the division, the remainder of the integer division of 10 by 2, and I will ask if that's 0. Okay, so this weird operation here is asking basically, is 10 a multiple of 2? Okay, and it's true. So in your little program, you will have to do something like, if then whatever the number is a multiple of, here I'm asking for, what is it, 3, let's say this is 0, you will do something, print something. Okay, so that's the idea. Now, the way that this will work is as follows: revolutionizing everything. But before I move into that, I don't know if you have any questions before I move into the activities and the breakout rooms.
I think the question is mainly when we use the folder, how to make sure some of the progress and the package is not lost. Yeah. Because you say if you lock out something,
Yeah,
would just...
yes, good point. So if you want to solve it, you can go to where this is. So this is again in library S4 lectures introduction, and then you go to basic Python, and I'm just reopening it again, and you can work on it here. Okay, if you save it, if you save it, unfortunately, it might get replaced the next time that it pulls new changes from the server. So the best way of doing this will be the following. The most sustainable way will be well, I'm gonna close it. Oh, basically you open it, but then you say make a copy. Okay, so you open the notebook that I'm working on, you're gonna make a copy, and it will make a copy and will just add a different file name. It will create a new file name. So this won't get replaced when you open it again. So this is a new instance. All the variables disappear because this is a new kernel basically. Okay, so what we will try to do is that every time there is an activity in one of the days, there will be a special notebook, secret notebook with the solutions. Okay, ideally, of course, you want to try to do the activities. For some days, there will be activities where we won't have the solutions here necessarily. Like tomorrow, we'll have an exercise that you can do in the afternoon, so that might not have the entire solution. But today, since this is a relatively simple problem, here's the solution. Now, if you were not aware of this problem, this was asked as a very basic filter for data scientists, because a lot of people were trying to become data scientists, but solving this problem seemed to filter some basic misunderstanding that you might have with if, else, or different alternatives. So isn't that a bit wise side returning a 0? I don't know. I think that should work. Okay. So I hope that this was useful. Again, this is more like an excuse for you two guys to interact. Hopefully it will be a little bit more challenging as we move along the days. But with that in mind, I want to then stop the morning session. And what will happen now depends on when you want to join. So for students that are in the, I don't know what should we call this, but I guess I'd call it Asian Oceania time zone. You can join back in 10 hours at 10 p.m. my time, which will be 10 a.m. in China, if I'm not mistaken. And that will be the session where Stephen will do some activities with you. So why don't you kind of give a tease of that, what that will be, Stephen, if you might.
Sure. So this is the sort of discussion, I guess, afternoon East Coast time and tomorrow morning Asian time. And so I'm just looking at the calendar. So basically, what we want to do is just start throwing out brainstorming about ideas for the project proposals. So I'll just go over a little bit of the mechanics of the sort of how we imagine it working. And we have a couple ideas that we've come up just to kind of mostly just provide kind of models or templates for how you might think of a project. But I think what would be really great is to give you guys an opportunity to put out your ideas and basically get at least a starting point, as a set of breakout rooms where we can start discussing it. And then also there's some good suggestions to set up Slack channels for different areas. And I think we can, my sense is that this is something that can be pretty organic getting started. So the goal here is not to lock yourself into a project as soon as possible, but instead to kind of think expansively, think about different ideas for what you might be able to do, and find other people who would be interested in doing the same thing. So we'll kind of get started on that when the next session starts. Is that?
Oh, cool. Yes. So I guess that's it. If anybody has any question, you can ask now, or we will just start the long break and we'll see you again in like.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
In the discussion, I don't have access to the Jupyter notebook. Or neither I had access for the sharing screen. The exercise that we just did.
I don't understand the question, sorry.
The exercise, the code that we just did in a group, I didn't have access to the server, the Jupyter notebook. It was saying that I'm not allowed. And I also don't have access for sharing the screen in that group activity.
Okay, so I fixed the issue of sharing screen and group activities. If you try to connect to the server and it told you that you don't have access, maybe I have your wrong GitHub account. So send me your GitHub.
I checked it earlier when you sent us email. That time it was working. The Jupyter was working.
Oh, okay, so now it's telling you that there is an error, basically. Yeah, so we are aware of that. Unfortunately, there is an error. We're trying to fix it. What happens is that we overcommitted the CPU. For those of you who are interested in the complexities of Kubernetes, we overcommitted the number of CPUs. So the server ran out of CPU. So now we lowered that a little bit. So it should get better after the break. Any other question?
I'm impressed by the shortest solution to our exercise.
Oh, I wasn't following. Yeah, so we'll just leave this open, right? There is no need to. I'm just leave this open, and yeah, people want to stay around for, and we'll come back in at 1:15. So I guess it's like an hour and 5 minutes. Okay.
Enjoy lunch, dinner, breakfast, whatever it
Right.
is.
Bye.